sleep's going to be your number one thing if you want to get the most out of trying to change something. First of all, it's going to be sleep.
Welcome to CrossFit East 10 Over the Bar podcast. The goal of this podcast is to answer common questions and encourage conversation between coaches, members, and the community.
Josh Brock here with head coach of CrossFit East 10, Rob Stacy, and coach Joe Brown. Today we're going to talk about 3 steps to help or speed up your recovery. Those 3 things being eat, sleep, and move. Well, eat being the first one. Why is this important? The quality of foods and how much food. Why is this important?
I mean, as it goes with basically all 3 things that we were talking about today, quality is going to be a priority over quantity. So as we talk about eating, sleeping, moving, all those things, we want to look at quality before we look at quantity or specific details on that. So when we think about quality, with nutrition, the importance there is that we're getting a variety of foods that have a variety of different types of macronutrients, as we talk about proteins, carbs, and fats, but then the variety of micronutrients that come along with that. So as we think about quality, and as it pertains to nutrition, you mostly want to think about this as thinking about basically your budget, whether that's weekly, monthly, however you structure that, and whatever the highest quality food is that you can afford within your budget is what you need to be looking to purchase. A lot of what is going on in kind of nutrition as it pertains to fitness, and especially functional fitness right now, is really focused on macros specifically, so people can find themselves eating just a bunch of trash in order to meet numbers that they've been given that may or may not be the right numbers for them. It might be a template they've been given. It might be numbers they see in other athletes following or something like that, and they think as long as I'm doing these particular things, then I'm going to end up in the same position as that. And nutrition is such a unique thing that it's important that you're finding the things that you feel like work for you. You have to have that ability to listen to yourself, listen to the signals your body's giving you, and really understand the role that plays. So for some people, which is going to be most common that you hear people talk about a lot now, is as it pertains to gluten. And gluten has its place. In some people's diets, it does not have a place. You have to understand what that looks like for you. And that comes in the form of, what does it feel like whenever you take gluten out? What does it feel like whenever you incorporate gluten? If you can't tell the difference, put it in there. But we want to think about grains on a whole, not just gluten and how that pertains. So that means a variety of grains. There's going to be quality when we're talking about quinoa. We're talking about ancient grains. We're talking about the way that oats are processed, all of that sort of stuff. So the priority here is that we're getting good quality, more so than the amount of food that we're getting. And that doesn't mean buy something that's super expensive and then not be able to afford anything for the other 6 days of the week, but find the quality that's going to let you maintain that very consistently over the course of a week's time, a month's time, however you're structuring, again, your budget, and then plan out from that point.
The next thing that we're going to go to is sleep. Of course, quality, and then how much. What can we do to help our sleep? Anything from turning off your phone an hour before, 30 minutes before you go to sleep, to taking any kind of supplement. What are some things that you would suggest that we can do to get better sleep?
As it pertains to sleep, again, this is going to be one of those things, people are going to give you a blanket recommendation of get 7 to 8 hours of sleep per night. And I think Rob, as we get to it, can talk a little bit about that, because I know he's read some of the stuff that Michael Bruce, is that his last name? The sleep doctor has done when it pertains to like different types of people and the types of sleep they need to get.
Like chronotypes?
Chronotypes, yeah. I'll let him get kind of specific on that, but as we're thinking about quality of sleep, the biggest things that we can do that most people are going to have some control over, first of which is going to be eliminating blue light as soon as possible as it pertains to your bedtime. So ideally, we're somewhere an hour, hour and a half before bed. You're turning do not disturb, or you're turning night shift on your iPhone or the equivalent version on an Android or whatever it might be. You stop watching TV. If you're on a computer, you're working on a computer, you're installing things like Flux to change that blue light sensitivity. And the main reason for that is that we want to be able to control your body's reaction to cortisol. And cortisol is stress hormone. Is going to be the thing that whenever you're training, it's going to be your body's adaptation response, and in that sense, it's a good thing. But if we're thinking about it as we're getting ready to go to sleep, we want to be in that sort of rest and digest phase. We want to eliminate cortisol, or that stress hormone. So blue light is one of those things that when you wake up first thing in the morning and you see blue light, kind of gets everything shifted and moving and working. But whenever we start to mess with that as the sun goes down, we kind of run into some issues there. So first thing we can do, eliminate that blue light. As you're getting ready to go to bed, if you can, try to charge your phone outside of your bedroom. That way you're not tempted. You wake up in the middle of the night, you start scrolling Facebook, you've got 10 notifications from 6 different apps, and you're working through all of those. Put it outside of the room. Get a traditional alarm clock. Get an alarm clock that's going to, or lights that will adjust to your light, like the hue lights from Philips that can come on at a particular time, give you that feeling of natural sunlight, especially if you're someone that wakes up before dawn. You don't have the ability to do that, or you just have a schedule that requires you to be up before that happens. So we really want to be able to control that response and that cortisol response that we experience. Next thing that we want to be able to do is we want to be able to sleep in an environment that ideally is somewhere between 63 and 67 degrees, just so that way, again, you're putting your body in a position where it's going to be able to best produce the hormones we experience overnight, position where you're not going to experience sort of the stuff that's in the air whenever it's very warm, all of those sort of things. Ideally 65 degrees if you can control that, but we have that range because it's going to be relative to how you sleep. If you're someone who has to sleep in a hoodie, sweatpants, that sort of thing, obviously you're going to be on that colder side of the spectrum. If you're someone who sleeps a lot less clothes, then we're going to be on that higher side, but you want it to be comfortable. You don't want to wake up shivering or anything like that. And going along with that, ideally, the less amount of clothing that you wear when you sleep is going to be better. It lets your body move around, keeps you from having any sort of suppression or compression. So if you can sleep naked, do that. If not, find the right amount of clothes that's not going to make it so that you have to wake up in the middle of the night every night, taking off one layer here, one layer there, just anything that we can do to make sure that we're maintaining a very long period of sleep without any sort of outside stress is going to be a good thing for us.
I've actually heard a couple people talk about the sleeping naked thing because it helps your body to reach the temperature that it needs to be at to sleep. Another thing that I have a problem with whenever I sleep, and it may just be a simple fix of stopping drinking fluids at a certain time, but there's certain nights where, I get out of the gym at 7 or 8, I need to be asleep by 9:30, drinking a protein shake, I'm trying to hydrate my body, drinking Gatorade, a couple bottles of water, eating dinner, and then going to sleep. And then I find myself waking up in the middle of the night 2 or 3 times to pee. So, and I've noticed that whenever I wake up throughout the night, I wake up feeling a little more groggy than whenever I'm able to sleep the full night. So what would you, because I'm sure that there's someone else listening to this that's like, I'm having that same thing. So what would you say to them or me? Like, what can we do to get that full night's sleep and stop waking up?
So that goes a little bit in depth on what Joe was mentioning before, the chronotypes that you are. So, because the same thing happened to me, and it happened quite often. And it hit me all of a sudden, and it was very long period, like for years. For years, it never happened to me, and then all of a sudden, this 2-year stretch, it was automatic. You're up to pee like this time at night, on the dot every single time, no matter where I was at, right? So the 4 chronotypes that Joe was talking about, which is going to be a good topic for the sleep portion, is dolphin, wolf, bear, and lion. And the guy breaks it down in the book, The Power of When, which is, if you haven't read that book, I've shared it. That's something that you need to look into. It's eye-opening. Like Joe was talking about, the broad basis of people just saying you need to get 7-8 hours of sleep, and it's optimal to get like that. And I was thinking, well, if I get 7 or 8 hours sleep, what if I got 9 or 10? That means I'm getting even more recovered. And then what that usually does for a lot of people, it puts them in a state of stress, which at the same, because if they don't get it, they're going to be stressed the heck out. Then at the same time, you're looking at the weekends, you're like, you think that you had this sleep bank, and you're trying to like recover by adding in more sleep because you didn't get enough sleep during the week. And that's not how your body works based off your chronotype. So what I am is a dolphin, which is primarily an insomniac. And insomniac in the state, it doesn't mean that I can't sleep. It can mean that your sleep is in and out. You're in and out of sleep constantly. And for me, I get extremely hot while I'm asleep. Well, for most people that are dolphins, an insomniac, your metabolism actually activates during night. Your metabolism's always working, but it's in overdrive at night. So when your body's heating up and you're trying to peel blankets off and you're like, I'm still hot, you and your partner's over there, if you're with somebody and they're over there like, I need all the blankets, how can you be so hot? It's freezing in here. Well, the thing is while they're resting, relaxing, my body's like wanting to be up and ready to go. It's like, we got to work out. So that's what your body's telling you. That goes into why you're, having the pee breaks at night. It's your body's signal of telling you that you're under stress. And what that can be from is the late, working out later at night. It could be job related, it could be relationship related. It could be just stuff that's on your mind. And that's what Joe was talking about, turning your phone off, having, less light in your eyes before you go to bed. All that stuff, and for me, what helped me stop peeing, it like stopped it automatically, was to sit down 10 minutes before I went to bed and meditating, getting myself from a sympathetic system into a parasympathetic system, and trying to do it quickly so that my body can relax. What I'll do is I'll try to, as soon as I get home, I'll try to get what I need to done on my phone or whatever I need to get done, like work-wise, done in 30 minutes. If it's not done in 30 minutes, then I'm getting up that night and peeing. And now I know if I wake up at night and pee once or twice, that I'm under some kind of stress. So I figured out that's my body telling, hey man, you need to calm down, you need to chill out. It could also be too, like if you're drinking tons of water before you go to bed, that's obviously going to happen.
Yeah.
But 2 or 3 to even 4 times a night is not normal. And that's part of understanding your chronotype, because just like Joe said, the base of I need 7 to 8 hours of sleep is for a lot of people, it doesn't work that way. There's guys who are like the most successful people in the world, they're doing it on 4 or 5 hours of sleep. If you ask them like, hey, how are you functioning on 4 hours of sleep? They're like, it's fine. It doesn't bother me a bit. If you read this book on the chronotype, you'll find out real quick like who you are and why you're that way. And then like your sleep picks up, like we're getting ready to talk about, your eating picks up, your recovery picks up. But there's a lot to talk about that too.
I heard a lot about the chronotypes, and I do think that that maybe checking into that book or even just a Google search and getting maybe like a Cliff Notes version.
They have a quiz that if you'll just type in what chronotype I am and type in Power of Wind on Google, it'll actually give you what chronotype you are. Now, as far as it'll tell you what you are and like kind of give you a basis, but to really go in depth of what you need to like how you need to apply it to your life, getting the books by far.
What's the book and the author?
The Power of Wind by Michael
Bruce.
Bruce. Yeah.
Okay.
Breus.
Perfect. The third thing that we're going to talk about is move. Why is this important as far as like active recovery, walking, biking, maybe swimming? How does this help our recovery on our rest days or even after a workout, right after a workout, getting on the bike? Like, how does this help us recover faster?
I'll kind of talk about this in 2 areas. So one of which will be post-workout, and then one of which will be just kind of talking about active recovery and the idea of active recovery as it pertains to the goal of that versus how it can be kind of misunderstood or applied in the wrong way. So post-exercise, one of the reasons that we want to move, and there's kind of a hierarchy of the way that we want to do this post-workout, is we want to, so muscle tissue, all of the sort of stuff that gets broken down over the course of a workout, and that's whether it's bodybuilding, whether it is CrossFit, whether it is gymnastics, whatever it is, there's going to be a certain level of tissue breakdown that takes place. And what we're trying to do is your body wants to immediately start to send, that kind of recovery and repair process to wherever that tissue is broken down. And we want to encourage your body to make that happen in a more fluid way and get blood flowing in a more composed way by moving. One of the best suggestions I've heard about this recently, and the thing that I've tried to do most often recently, is rather than like going straight over, getting a shake, starting that whole process, is to instead take probably 15 to 30 minutes, depending upon the time that you have, walk outside in the sun, start that recovery process that comes along with vitamin D, get the very low level movement that comes along with walking started, so that way you get that blood flow going most often into your legs, but there's arm movement that comes along with that as well. And then you're starting to level your heart, level your brain, do all of that sort of stuff, so that way we begin that stress removal process. So 15 to 30 minutes there, walk outside in the sun, regardless of the temperature, as long as you're in the daylight, that's what the sun is. Okay, so it doesn't have to be a super sunny day. If it's raining, you can't do it or whatever. You just need to start that movement process. The next part of that is when you come back inside and you are starting to get that post-workout shake, all of that sort of stuff, go ahead and jump on a bike as well, because that cyclical, very low impact movement is going to encourage blood flow. And by encourage blood flow, what we mean by that is you're just encouraging blood to move through your body because it's going to go wherever most of that movement's happening. And it's been kind of constricted by whatever the type of movement is that we've done before that. And with that shake, and I'll just make this kind of as a note, is when you're drinking that shake, don't just try to gulp down. If you've got a 24-ounce shake, don't try to gulp down 6 ounces every time you take a drink. Get a small mouthful of that and then swish it around in your mouth. The reason we want to do that is because just like whenever we're eating and we start to chew food, we're creating the process of sending enzymes that help with that digestion into your system. So your body is really unique in that way, is that it basically just makes the enzymes that you need for digestion on demand. So if you've got asparagus in your mouth, there's going to be certain enzymes that help with that. If you've got a whey protein shake, whatever type of protein shake you have in your mouth, there's going to be other specific enzymes that are created. So switch it around your mouth, probably 10, 15 seconds, and start kind of some nasal breathing and that sort of stuff to really regulate your heart rate. And it'll help with that digestion process. So starting to flush broken down tissue, metabolites, all of that sort of stuff that's taking place in that immediate post-workout recovery window. So, we're 30 to 45 minutes post-workout, and we start that process that will then go into the rest of the nutrition we have, the sleep, and all that kind of stuff. And then with active recovery and the way that as coaches we ideally want that to be interpreted is not come in and put together a 20 to 30, maybe 60-minute session where you're going to be sweating and doing that sort of stuff. Sweat is a good thing, and it can help with a lot of different processes. But as we think about active recovery, what we want that to be is it should be something where you feel like you could do this for anywhere from 10 minutes to 5 to 6 hours. It shouldn't be like, okay, what can I do in an hour that I maybe need to work on, maybe not. So a lot of times what we see and what we experience is that a lot of times athletes will come in and work on weaknesses. They'll get on the bike, and it turns out they hate the bike, so they have this immediate stress response as soon as they get on the bike anyways, but it's something they've been told to do or told to experience. If it's something you hate and you actively do not like it, you don't do it on an active recovery day. That is the exact opposite of recovery. You're putting yourself in a 60-minute stress syndrome, stress state. So what we want to typically look at is we want these to be movements where you're not going to be going through a really loaded phase through your joints and your muscles. So it's going to be like if you're talking about air squats, being in a full range air squat. We'd rather you see be up above parallel, so whether that's going to come in the form of jumping rope, whether that is coming in the form of step ups to maybe a slightly shorter box, doing modified range of motion pistol squats or something like that. So we're getting some unilateral work in, but our priority with that is that we want to get blood flowing through your body. So as you're putting together active recovery sessions, think about the things that you're doing. You should have blood that flows into all 4 extremities. You should have blood in your core and your torso, so ab work, core work, that sort of stuff, single arm, moving, throwing, balancing, single arm, or single leg, jumping, running, bounding, all that sort of stuff. So we want that to be a variety of movement that allows you to have some fun, really reduce stress, really give your body the opportunity to move broken down tissue that's in your system. And that primarily comes from your lymphatic system, which is just where all the junk that you create goes, and then we want to flush that out. So whenever people start experiencing swollen lymph nodes, a lot of times it's because they're not doing the things they need to do to recover. So we want these things to kind of flush all that to your extremities to get your body to process that out through your organs versus just kind of building up, which is what we experience during the times that we're working out.
On these 3 things, eat, sleep, and move, would you say that there's one that's more important or equally important? Of course, if we were going to do like a sequence, it would be to move right after your workout, and then to eat after your workout, and then get good sleep that night. But is there one that's, that you would see more important, or would you say that they're equally important?
You're absolutely right about the timing of it, but I think if we're speaking purely from a recovery perspective, the thing that people need to nail down is sleep. And that's primarily because that's basically your way of cheating the system, because that's when your body's producing HGH, or human growth hormone, and testosterone. So if we're thinking about what are the things as it comes to active people that we can do the most of to get the most benefit, most bang for your buck, that you can't get otherwise, and it's going to be being able to sleep, get through 3 to 4 full sleep cycles. That's going through light sleep, deep sleep, REM, but making sure we're getting into that deep sleep period. So if you're someone that has a Fitbit or some type of app that monitors your sleep, get a sense of how often you're getting into that deep sleep cycle, because that's when your body's producing testosterone and HGH. It doesn't do it any other time during the day. That's the time that you do it. So all the stuff that, professional athletes get banned for, the stuff that is completely banned in any sport, that's when your body's producing that stuff. So if you get more of that type of sleep, you're getting more of the banned stuff that people can't take or inject. So your priority, number one, should be getting into figure out how do you optimize your sleep, what are the things that work for you, and then what are the particular parameters that you need to find to make sure that that happens. And then the other stuff, specific as it pertains to recovery, you kind of figure out. But sleep's going to be your number one thing. If you want to get the most out of trying to change something, first of all, it's going to be sleep.
All right, comes that time in our episode where we have our featured member. Today we've got the Chad Rambo. How you doing, Chad?
Doing pretty good. A little tired from that workout, but
Perfect. All right, so how long have you done CrossFit?
a little over 4 years.
So tell them a little bit, like me and you talk quite a bit, and you talk to Brett quite a bit, and tell them a little bit about your fitness background that a lot of people don't know about. Tell them that you have been in personal training before, that you've coached before. I think a lot of people don't know that. So anytime that you're in class with me, I always tell people, say, hey, you know what? If I'm not watching you, Chad's here too, and people kind of like look at me like, what do you mean? So I want you to kind of branch out and tell them about yourself.
Okay. Well, I grew up playing sports, baseball and basketball mostly. I got crushed in football, so I only did 1 year of that. But then after high school, I was an Army Ranger, so I was in for 4.5 years as an infantryman, and then I got out and got my personal training certification. Through different life circumstances, I got pretty out of shape and discovered CrossFit. And then got really into it just so that I could be able to go out and do hikes and different things with my friends without getting really out of breath, and just be able to enjoy what I was doing outside of the gym. And then I was a CrossFit coach down in Georgia for a while.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize that you haven't lived here. I mean, you're from here, but you haven't lived here your whole life, and you spent some time in Georgia. So what is your favorite thing about CrossFit?
The first one is definitely for me just therapy. It's just a total mind release to just come in here and just have fun with everybody, just to work out, to see other people pushing and make you want to push yourself, and just to give the chance, whether you've had a good or a bad day, just to throw it out on the workout and just have fun. So.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most valuable things I find as a member is people don't realize I take value in certain members. Sometimes I take value in everybody, but there's certain members that I take a lot of value in. It's because they bring up the people that are around them. They're not here just to get their workout in and leave, pick up their cell phone and be dove into that. They're actually involved. And every time that I've seen you in class, no matter what time it is, or it's late at night, early in the morning, you're always talking to somebody. You're always telling somebody something positive, or trying to help them with a lift, or trying to tell them, hey, try this, or hey, Rob and Joe or Brett told me to do this, you need to try this, or have you read this? So it's a growth mindset, and it's something that we want all our members to have, and I hope that people see that value that you bring to us every day. So I thank you for that. So besides that, what's the one thing that you like to do outside the gym? I've talked to you quite a bit about this, but let's let the listeners hear about it.
Well, one of the biggest thing, I guess, the first thing that comes to mind is just like hiking and stuff like that. And just because I use that a lot of time for like prayer and stuff like that. And so now I don't have to think about being out of breath when I want to get to wherever I'm going. I can actually release and think about God and different life issues and stuff like that. And then CrossFit has also, it's also taught me a lot. It's things I learned outside the gym and inside of the gym, where you just learn how to attack weaknesses, not just inside of the gym. Like, I have a problem with handstand push-ups, but is there a character issue I need to work through, or just whatever the case is, and when you realize how to set up a game plan to get better in here, you realize you have to take that outside the gym and set up game plans to get better in life. So
That's 100% accurate. That's something we need to hopefully eventually have you in the future come on a podcast and hang out and talk to me about that, because that's again something you talk about is positive mindsets, how to be positive to other people. And I think one thing that helps me and you get along so well and people don't realize is our faith. And we don't throw it in people's faces, but people, when we're asked, we talk for quite a bit.
Yeah.
So, and I feel like that's the best way to reach people as well. But thank you for coming on today, Chad. Again, hopefully in the future we can get you on here again and talk about some of that cool stuff.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.